name is Ben Tice, owner and director of Skol Marketing. We help people establish their online presence with web development and UX design, and then we help people enhance their online presence with things like SEO, social media, and SEM, and all that kind of fun stuff. But my favorite part of my job is partnering with great organizations like Score and putting on these workshops that are all revolving around digital marketing so that you can understand them more. If this is something you're going to handle internally and do yourself, or have maybe potential employer department kind of handle this, or if you're looking for outside help, it's still important to know what these topics are, the changes, and to kind of get our foundation set and kind of build up from there as we go through with strategy and knowledge base and whatnot. So with that said, what we're going to be talking about today here is kind of growing our business with social media and understanding, the different platforms out there, why it's important to really kind of how to get started, to kind of get our feet wet and kind of get our hands around everything social media and figure out what platforms are going to be best for your business and how we can start to potentially implement this, again, either internally or externally. So today we're going to be talking about growing your business with social media in 2022. So we're going to be going over things like finding our voice, utilizing the actual social media platforms, looking at some of the trends that we're seeing, again, over the past kind of year and into 2022, going to look at the actual specific social media platforms and understand, okay, so I know of TikTok, but should I be on that compared to Facebook, compared to Twitter? All of those we're going to kind of break down a little bit to kind of give you a better understanding of the different platforms out there and how you can better utilize them. And throughout the entire presentation, we'll be talking about techniques on the different social media platforms, as well as overall, that could potentially and hopefully are going to benefit you in your social media kind of strategy. So the first thing I just kind of like to start out with is taking a step back and really looking at utilizing social media and the why. Why should we be, again, utilizing social media, and how should we really be positioning ourselves? So really what you want to do here is that you want to make sure that at the end of the day, what you're doing with social media is that you're connecting with either potential customers or current customers, and you want to present yourself as an industry expert. Social media isn't a platform where we're just going to sell. You have to be kind of a resource for those people that are online and those, different platforms. So when we're on Facebook, we want to be a resource for those followers. When we're on Twitter, likewise, when we're on TikTok, Snapchat, whatever we may be on, we want to make sure that you have to understand that as a business perspective, we need to present ourselves as an industry expert. Now, how do we do that is by essentially kind of posting and producing and sending out and distributing content out there that people can essentially engage with. And a lot of times I have just a simple formula to kind of do. And so really it's the give, ask. And what this is kind of getting at is pretty much a 2-to-1 type of content kind of creation or posting on social media should be about, again, something that is giving back or something that's resourceful, something that's entertaining, funny, informational, something like that. And then, again, like if we're using this 3 examples, so if we did 2 posts about that, then the last one should be asking for something. What we're getting at here is the biggest mistake that small business owners make on social media, which is they jump on social media and all they start doing is talking about themselves, talking about their products or services, and asking you to buy them. That doesn't work on social media. That does work on SEO. That does work on like Google Ads or SEM, but it doesn't work on social media. And that's because we need to have the right expectations here. We need to understand that we're on a social media platform. There are really 4 main kind of benefits that we're looking at. Whereas again, when we look at SEO and SEM, really the main focus for those is really kind of lead generation and sales. Now, again, does not mean that we can't get leads and we can't get sales from social media and that, okay, well, I'm going to throw my hands up and say, I'm going to wash my hands of social media. No, it's just understanding the right expectation. You have to understand how it's done. And so part of that starts to understand that there are really kind of 4 main components to the value of social media. The first is branding, kind of getting your name out there. There's also almost kind of an expectation, depending on what kind of business you are, to be on some sort of social media. You hear Facebook a lot, but also, again, like potentially could be going into TikTok. Some of it even has to go into, again, Twitter or LinkedIn, depending on maybe if you're business to business or B2C, business to consumer. Maybe if your demographic is younger or older, there's kind of this expectation, and that kind of goes into branding of just being on social media. There's a certain kind of standard that's kind of set, and there's a value to that. Also, we're seeing, and this has been happening even for the past couple years now, where a lot of people are feeling more and more comfortable where they would rather reach out on a social media platform than potentially reach out to you on your website or however you are, again, getting some of that customer service feedback or inquiries from you. So that's also another thing that we're kind of seeing, is that people are utilizing this from a comfortability standpoint to be able to have that be done, and that can be a benefit. Also, the two that usually what people are potentially kind of looking for, this is more of an internal benefit to you and more of like a sales or leads, is there actually is an SEO benefit, a search engine optimization benefit, and being on social media can actually help you and contribute to you ranking higher. And then last but not least is sales. At the end of the day, yes, we can get sales, we can get leads from social media. But again, we need to go into it understanding that that shouldn't be our main focus realistically. Our main focus should be, we need to present ourselves as an industry expert. We need to be posting twice as much about things that are around our industry, blogs and infographics and articles, again, funny memes and things like that, something that's entertaining or a resource to people, and then kind of slipping in there maybe a sale or a new product that's in there. Also, it's important to understand throughout the entire presentation, we're essentially going to be focusing on your business page. And so, of course, there's a difference between business pages and personal pages, but just want to make sure that we're understanding that every time your business signs up for a platform, you should be using a business page. Now, there are a couple of them out there that, like, for instance, like Twitter's the main one that doesn't really delineate between the two. But of course, you would set your, again, your Twitter account up to be just about your business and revolving around that. But the other ones like Facebook and, again, LinkedIn and even Instagram with some of their, again, kind of account changes and things like that, that you just want to make sure that we're setting these all up as a business page. And last but not least, when we look at this, is to reuse content. What we're talking about here is, and you'll kind of see this as we kind of go throughout the presentation, but one of the biggest things that I see that people, either complain about or really struggle with social media is the amount of content that it, again, requires to be sometimes successful, again, with these platforms. Well, one key thing that I kind of tell people to look at is reuse content. Either, again, you can potentially even reuse posts that you've done months or years ago, if they're still applicable, but also, for instance, if you've written a blog post, again, if you wrote a blog, maybe 6 months ago and it's still applicable, there's probably a lot of resources or facts or posts that can be done out of that content. If you've done a video, if you've done a white paper, if you've done, those types of things, if you've put time, effort, and money into some of those things that are surrounding your business that are kind of an asset to that, make sure we're trying to utilize that as much as possible. And we'll go into some, again, examples here as you'll see throughout the presentation, but it's going to be an overarching kind of theme to really kind of, again, not only be an industry expert, give twice as much as you're kind of asking, understanding the benefits of social media, but also reusing content as much as we can. Also kind of finding your voice. And so, again, throughout the presentation, we're going to go through each kind of platform and kind of give you a little bit more information. And this might be something you review later on, because there's going to be a lot of bullet points of just, piecing and kind of peeling back some of the different platforms. But at the end of it, it's making some of those decisions to figure out which social media platform best fits your business. And the second point, and is not going to spread yourself too thin. The last thing you want to do is come away and go, hey, I'm going to be on every platform possible, and you make it 2 weeks, you get burnt out, and now you're, again, jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing, where you're not benefiting anything. So start where you feel is going to be, you can handle. Start where you think you're going to be successful, and start where your main kind of demographics are. Also, it's understand to have different types of content. When we start using, again, the word content, what we're kind of talking about here, or posts or tweets, again, what we're essentially talking about here is they could just be text-based. They could be linking to something else. They could be a picture. They could be an infographic, can be a video. There's, again, multitude of different types of content. And you want to make sure to give yourself the best opportunity to be successful in social media. You want to mix them kind of throughout. So you just don't just want to post text. You don't just want to post links. You don't just want to post pictures. Again, you want to be able to kind of see different types of content. And you can even see on the right-hand side here, here's also some kind of ideas here. And this is just a bar graph kind of showing you surveying different users, but social media content increasingly favored by consumers. You can see the top one here by almost a third of users is links to more information. We also have educational images and infographics, video, text, edited photos. You can see that I pretty much kind of mentioned those, but it kind of puts a little bit more into context of potentially the amount or the ratio that you could be sharing these, knowing that this is kind of the preference of most kind of consumers. You also want to make sure that you're getting on a schedule and posting regularly. At a minimum, you should be posting 2 to 3 times a week. And I know that might be a little scary, and that's why I kind of say we want to make sure we're not spreading ourselves too thin. We're, want to make sure we find the right platform, because I will say it does take effort to be able to put into these platforms, but a lot of times, like a lot of marketing as well, as what you put into it is going to increases the chances of what you're going to get out of it. Ideally, we'd love to get into that. Again, if you can be posting 5 to 7 times a week, great. Now, again, some of these might not be, again, applicable or I should say obtainable right now, but these are things that we can kind of build towards as well. Another thing that you could also look for, and I get asked about this a lot, is that there are a ton of third-party applications out there that won't, again, be able to replace all the things that maybe you need to do on a social media platform, but can also really kind of help supplement that and take away a large amount of that management. And those are third-party applications like Hootsuite, Buddy Media, Social Sprout, Buffer. Really what these platforms are is you would get an account, for instance, with Hootsuite, you would log in and you would attach all your social media accounts to it, and you're able to manage it mainly from that dashboard. Now, you can't do 100% of it. And, like I said, it's probably not going to replace everything out there, sometimes even with messages or your stories or some content that you want to kind of be able to kind of do out there, especially like with tagging products, if you have a social shop, stuff like that. But, if it can take away 50%, 60%, 70%, it can really help you be more efficient. So I highly recommend that you use third-party applications to at least help you with that, even if it's just taking a certain percentage out of that, knowing that it's not going to take 100%. That's sometimes a myth that I hear from a lot of small business owners out there, that we think that we can just get one of those applications and run everything 100% out of there. But, again, it can definitely help. And a lot of times it's going to be well worth the amount that you're paying for those platforms. Okay, some trends that we're essentially kind of seeing here, and we've seen these trends start to kind of grow and shift a little bit over the past kind of year. So the first one is kind of understanding the different generations' favorite platforms and messaging on them to that individual, into that individual kind of generation. Now, this isn't saying that, for instance, if we're looking at baby boomers and understanding baby boomers' number one platform is Facebook, that you can't find millennials or Gen Z or Gen X on there. It's just understanding, though, that if you are doing your marketing and you come away with going, hey, millennials are our number one demographic we need to be going after in 2022. Well, again, looking at this, we most likely definitely should be on Instagram because that's their number one preferred platform. So it's understanding where your demographic is going to essentially be, and then making sure that we essentially kind of, again, apply that strategy to those different kind of platforms. Here's again one of those bullet points that I told you that we were going to see a couple times here is reusing content, again, throughout it. But also what we can do is we can essentially reuse the content meeting, but conform to that certain platform. What we're talking about here is that, again, not all platforms, treat links equally. Not all platforms allow, or some platforms have certain character limits. But the idea, though, is that you can decide, say, hey, I'm going to post about this topic A today, and then you might have to tweak it. Maybe you tweak it knowing that some of those different demographics are on different platforms. Obviously, you're going to have to tweak it from a technical kind of standpoint. But again, the idea is that you can use the same meaning and then just kind of slightly alter it. And what's nice is you can alter that manually on those platforms. But you can also alterate that even using some of those third-party applications. It's really kind of nice because those third-party applications, for instance, like a Hootsuite or Buddy Media, you can essentially say your post, and then you can go into each individual platform that you have connected to that, and then alterate it, again, for that platform as well. So it's really kind of a cool kind of concept, but it's really just making sure this can be more efficient to you. So you don't necessarily have to have, different content for every platform. Now, again, sometimes you may post things that aren't going to be applicable to some of the platforms, most likely maybe from a technical standpoint. The biggest one, for instance, is like Instagram. Instagram, which we'll get into, is very photo, specific. Well, if we don't have a photo and we're just kind of maybe doing a quick kind of text, again, based post, well, again, maybe we would just post that on those platforms like Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn that can kind of support those. Another big one that we kind of hear a lot is called UGC, user generated content. The biggest example of this is, for instance, like reviews. But what we're really talking about with user generated content is using content that people have essentially created and attached to your business in some way. That might be tagging your business on social media, might be checking in, or like I said, one of the bigger ways that we see this is with reviews. So what you could do is you could go to your Google My Business account, see that Fred Jackson left you a review, a very positive one. You could take that review and you could share that with others and actually make a post about it. Maybe it's thanking Fred. Maybe it's maybe there's something in his review that he's talking about that you want to expand about, or that you want to say that you're proud of, or whatnot. The idea, though, is you're using either the idea of the core essence of whatever you're posting. It was someone else essentially kind of generated it. And so, again, you can see these, of course, if you have Google My Business or Yelp, you can get reviews that way. You can also track certain things with some of those third-party applications. So you can bring in some of your notifications. Of course, if you go to Facebook and you check your notifications, you're going to see right away who's tagging you, who's maybe using a certain hashtag if you want to search for that on Twitter or Instagram. Those are the types of things that you can kind of either track manually, or some of those third-party applications can also even help you keep track of some of those. But at the end of the day, again, what we're talking about here is user-generated content, having others kind of start that process for you, or doing the essence of it, and being able to then have that, again, you taking that a step further and actually creating a post for yourself. Another thing to also keep in mind that, and especially with social media, because there's a lot of, again, like emotion that comes from social media. And so, again, it's much different than SEM or SEO. SEM and SEO and other kind of media, and sometimes even other advertising, are very kind of direct and sometimes even more black and white. What we're kind of getting across here is users are much socially conscious now, studies have shown, and how brands are reacting to that. So that might be, of course, again, you posting some of your opinions on some of those things that might be related, you again, showing some of your support or your opinions on those. But the idea is, and you may just want to stay silent as well. But what we're just showing you here, though, is there is a trend. There have been studies that have been done that users more than ever are being more conscious of, again, how brands are reacting both positively or negatively to different kind of issues that are going around in this world. Also, another thing that we hear a lot of times are just social media influencers. And I get asked a lot of times, Ben, so what is a social media influencer? Really, a social media influencer is someone that has kind of built up their personal brand and has, built up kind of a following. And we see a lot of times an opportunity to kind of market ourselves or to kind of, connect with them. And so what a lot of times I kind of tell people is, if there's certain people in your industry that you're kind of following, most likely they're going to be labeled as a social media influencer. If they have a large following, they're kind of, talking to your demographic, your type of people, or, again, your type of industry, or, related to your products or services. And something as easy as, some social media influencers will allow you to potentially pay them and you can have some programs there. But also, can be just looking at, again, their following and getting a better idea of how some of these social media influencers, how they're producing content. And maybe there's some ideas that you can take from that and try to do some of that kind of yourself. And then last but not least, and I mentioned this just a little previously as well, is social shopping. This is huge. If you sell products, you absolutely should be social shopping. And this is mainly related to, again, kind of three platforms: Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. What we're able to do here is you can essentially tag those posts with actionable, again, actionable products. So if we post something, we can actually tag that image to say, hey, you want to buy this hat that you're seeing someone there, you can literally just kind of tag that. So if you are selling any type of products, you absolutely should be looking into social shopping, setting up a shop, having people be able to kind of, again, go through that shop on Facebook or Instagram, or like I said, even Pinterest allows that kind of tagging opportunity as well. But the idea is that, again, if you're selling products, absolutely should be integrating that into your social media and using the applicable platforms that are out there. Okay, now getting into some of the other different, again, platforms that are going to be out here that we can kind of walk through. And to kind of just give you an overview, like I said, there's going to be a lot of information here, but hopefully you guys can kind of, come back and review this and at least get a better sense of, as we go through each one of these platforms, which ones are going to be right for you. So the first is understanding, again, Facebook. Facebook is the largest social media platform out there right now. It has right now 2.8 billion monthly users. And really, again, the number one platform or the number one demographic that's on Facebook now are baby boomers. So we're even seeing the 40-year-olds, females, again, the 65 plus user growth is really starting to dominate this. And so, again, we can take kind of the average user, but I will say kind of the more populous user, because again, you can be on Facebook at 13 years old, all the way up to, of course, again, 100 plus years old. And so what we're seeing here, though, is that, this platform is, again, is huge, but we're also starting to see some cracks into Facebook. This year is the first time in years ever that Facebook has actually seen a decline in active users per kind of month. It was really starting to flatten off there, and now we're seeing a little bit of a decline. Now, part of that has to do with just, again, some of the demographics, some other platforms kind of coming out there. That doesn't necessarily mean that you should just abandon ship, because for a lot of businesses, you can sometimes, usually starts with Facebook, and sometimes it may end with Facebook, depending again on, not spreading yourself too thin, understanding your demographic, understanding your limits, what you're trying to kind of do. What's nice about Facebook is you pretty much have the, again, there's the best array of features, meaning that you can pretty much post anything you want from a content type. You can, again, have links in them. You can have pictures. You can just have text. You can create events. We can do social shopping. So really, Facebook is great for an array of different kind of content. So we can see that here, blogs and articles, pictures and video. We can do Facebook Live if we want. We can just upload, again, actual videos. We can record videos off of there. We can start conversations, even with our own Facebook groups, or just obviously with a post. We can do updates and we can do polls and, again, things like that. So it has the biggest array of different types of content which can be really kind of valuable. Of course, it's something to monitor as we're starting to potentially see some of these cracks, or just starting to see, some of these things that are coming out, with Facebook, just with the demographic. But again, being so big at 2.8 plus billion monthly users, there's a lot of potential there for you to connect with people, specifically users that, again, that are already customers, but also users that you could find value in, that you could kind of create a relationship as well. Facebook also is really good at driving traffic to your site. And the main reason for that is because they really highly support links being, again, put into your social media posts and then having those go to another site. Also engaging with users, promoting events and products with the social selling, and being able to kind of create Facebook events and making that kind of easier. So we've kind of talked about some of the negatives. The one thing I will say, again, remember, this is all from a business page standpoint, is that the biggest issue that sometimes people have with this is when we just start our Facebook account, or maybe you've been at it for a couple of years and you're really just not seeing the traction because we don't have the numbers there. And really what Facebook has done is it's a pay to play type of system. So really, if you're going to, again, be successful on Facebook, you probably should have at least a small budget, and maybe that's even 40 or 50 bucks a month, to kind of, do some basic boosting or advertising or promoting within Facebook to start to get some more, again, exposure, so you can get more likes. That's one of the frustrating parts a lot of people have with Facebook, is that it does take some time when you're starting out from zero or very small numbers to really kind of grow that, but there is an exponential factor. And that really kind of goes to every social media platform out here. Now, the positive with this is that Facebook does have a couple internal tools that can actually really help you increase your followers. Some are one time, some are kind of ongoing. And here's what you can kind of see on this screen. So you may not know this, but every admin that is connected to your Facebook business page, is able to invite all of their personal friends a one-time, again, invite to pretty much everyone that follows their page. So this example you can see on the upper, the screenshot there, you can see that 4,744 people have been invited, and there's still 107 that can be done. So the idea here, though, is that if you're an admin, if you have multiple admins, they can go into this individually as they're logged into Facebook, and they can, again, send a one-time invite to all of their friends. You probably have already seen the post where people just post on their page that say, hey, can you follow my page? You can still do that, of course, and there's no limit to that. This, though, sends them a direct, invite in their notifications to say, hey, Ben Tice has invited you to follow the Skol Marketing business page, and they can either accept it or decline it. Now, the one kind of caveat with this is, now there's no real, again, exact number out there, but we've done some case studies and there's been some research done. And usually it seems that you can send about 1,000 invites per week or so. And so what that means is, if you have more than 1,000 personal friends on Facebook that you want to invite, it's probably going to take you several weeks to several months, depending on some of those limits that are imposed in there. And so you can do this from the mobile app, you can do this from the desktop. Just know that once someone's been invited, there's no way to refresh that, and you can only send out one. But a lot of times what we see is anywhere from 10 to 20% of the people that you invite end up accepting. It's not going to be 100% because sometimes people miss them, they don't see them, they don't know where to, access them. But still, you can imagine that if you have, again, a sizable amount, even hundreds of friends on Facebook, it, again, to get 10 to 20% of those to like your business page can really help you kind of jumpstart that. Another one, as you start to organically or via paid advertising, as you start to build your Facebook page and produce more content and people start to engage with it, there's also more of an ongoing one that you can do. So, again, we probably know at this point that within Facebook and within all social media that, again, the people that see your posts or that potentially even see your posts aren't just the people that are following you. The whole point of social media is to kind of, again, get that the connections. If you and me are kind of friends on Facebook and I like something, Facebook goes, hey, since you guys are friends, you might like this too. It's kind of called what we kind of dub the discoverability factor. And so within Facebook is, as you start to post, again, organic content, as maybe you boost certain posts or you run certain ads, people can essentially just engage with that post or that ad. What essentially happens is what you're seeing in the bottom, screenshot here, bottom left. And every time someone either likes, loves, laughs, again, you pretty much reacts to your post, you can actually click on that number. So if that number is 17, as you see here, if that number is 247, if that number is 2, you can get a list of all the people that, again, reacted to your post. Well, you can also see with this screenshot here that if they aren't liking your page right now, you can also then send them a one-time invite to follow your page. Because again, you're always going to most likely have people that are, as you at least start to get your page going, or for sure, if you run any type of advertising on Facebook, you 100% will get people that are going to react to your, again, your post or your ad that aren't connected to your page. But even organically, you can see here that happens as well. So utilizing these two kind of internal free opportunities within Facebook is a great way to kind of continue to grow your page. Instagram. So Instagram is actually owned by Facebook. So you'll see a lot of connectivity between the two platforms. Instagram is also very large at again, 0.0+ billion monthly users. So it's very active. 60% of users use on a daily basis. So we have a very, again, high engaged, demographic here that are also on Instagram, are coming here a lot throughout the course of, again, days, weeks, years, months, whatnot. Now, the average user here is mainly going to be kind of millennials. We talked about that previously, but this is the millennials' #1 preferred kind of platform. So again, if we know that, but that also doesn't mean that Gen X isn't on there. That also doesn't mean that baby boomers aren't here. It's just understanding that the kind of the average user here, as well as understanding that the preferred platform millennials is going to be kind of Instagram. But here is where everything kind of starts to change just a little bit from Facebook. Of course, there has to be some difference of otherwise, why would Facebook have purchased Instagram? But also when we look at it, so content has to be visual. Every post that you do on Instagram has to be accompanied with an image or a video. Also, everything is very hashtag centric. If you were to take away one thing from Instagram and you want to know how to build up your following, of course you can run ads. Of course, you have to produce enough content. If you're only posting once every month or whatever, it's just not going to happen. But one big thing is every time that you post on Instagram, you want to make sure that you understand that it's very hashtag centric. So you want to make sure, on average, I usually recommend, tagging every post that you do 5 to 10 hashtags per post. The reason we do this is again, Instagram's way of kind of increasing their discoverability factor. Again, people, that are on Instagram know that, hey, if I find a post that is, again, tagged with something really interesting, maybe sports artist, I can click on that and then see all these other posts that are also, again, tagged with sports artist, hashtag sports artist, hashtag foodie, hashtag, chicken dinner, whatever it is that's related to your business. We can start to kind of think about what people would be searching for or what people would want to click on. Another cool feature for a user within Instagram is they can actually follow hashtags. So if they're consistently seeing really good content with maybe it's hashtag home DIY, they can then essentially, follow that hashtag so that when you post something and, then use that hashtag home DIY, then, again, now you have an opportunity to be in someone's feed and they not only can potentially engage with your post, but then also potentially kind of follow you. So that's another really big kind of difference within Instagram. And out of all the other kind of social media platforms, Instagram definitely is the most hashtag centric there. Also, products and events are a really good way. Events can be very visual, but more so even products, because again, we can have an Instagram shop. So we can essentially, be tagging our posts with, again, the different types of products that we sell. Very similar to Facebook. And you'll actually be able to, if you create a shop on Facebook, you'll actually be able to import all of those products. So you actually don't have to do them twice. You'll be able to import those and connect those all to your Instagram. So you only have to do it once, but then use it for 2 platforms. So again, selling visual products, gaining kind of exposure with that discoverability factor, building a younger kind of following. But a couple of things just to kind of know about Instagram that can be potentially kind of frustrating is that it, again, you can do some things, via third parties like Hootsuite or Buddy Media and some of those, but a lot of the features are going to be kind of on your phone and kind of mainly phone based. The biggest issue that people usually have with Instagram is that second bullet point, is that there are no links in posts. So if you say, again, if we did that give, ask, and that ask one, you decide to say, hey, we've got a sale, again, hey, use the code, again, promo 10, and, again, go to mybusiness.com. If you put that mybusiness.com in there, it's just going to show up as text. Whereas if you do that on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, it actually is hyperlinked and can actually go to your website. So within Instagram, you really only get one profile link, just like all those other, if you go to your Twitter page, there's one link at the top that's kind of your profile, which is usually sent to your business. Same thing with Facebook in the about section. Same thing with LinkedIn. You only get that. You can't put individual links in, organic Instagram posts. The only way to get those is to run ads on Instagram, and then you're able to actually have a call to action link on there. Another frustrating part too can be a little bit cumbersome using third-party posting platforms. I kind of mentioned that before. The Buddy Media, the Social Sprouts, the Hootsuites, they do have some engagement now, which is nice. It used to be 0, but again, you still might find some limitations, and that's why I said is it will help you, again, with a certain percentage using those platforms, but you might not be able to do everything that you want to do. So just making sure that we're, again, taking that into consideration. Okay, moving along into Twitter. So Twitter, 40% of active users are on mobile, and actually that's really kind of even grown now too. And so what we're kind of seeing here is that Twitter is now capped at 280 characters. Used to be 140, but they actually doubled it so that people could kind of say more, again, within these kind of tweets. But really, Twitter is really good for kind of quick, easily kind of digestible information. Or if any of your stuff is very time sensitive, this can also help for, like, for instance, customer service, anything that's maybe event related. Twitter can be a fantastic type of platform. Like, I have a client that does, again, snow plowing. Twitter's their #1 way that they're able to quickly get out details to say, hey, this is what's happening, and all those things kind of like that. They still can use Facebook and some of the other ones, but Twitter's really built for really quick, really easy, really time sensitive type of content that we're going to be pushing out. Now, we can, of course, again, also link to other things. So we can post articles and videos and all the other kind of stuff that we can do. We can share other people's content called retweeting, again, all of those things that we can kind of do. It's just, again, we're doing it a little bit different way, and we're doing it more kind of quicker and more condensed usually. Whereas like Facebook and some of those, the other platforms we're going to talk about today, they don't really have character limits. You could write a novel if you wanted. Twitter, you're not going to be able to do that. We have to be a little bit more concise. We have to be a little bit more quick with our content. What I love to use Twitter for, though, as well, and this is where I highly recommend that you can kind of utilize this, is, of course, you can use it from a business kind of perspective, but I also love to follow a lot of industry experts in this, because Twitter, a lot of times we see, is used a lot of times from a personal branding. So there's a lot more personal branding that goes on in Twitter than any other platform out there. Of course, people will still have their, again, athlete or their celebrity pages on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. But Twitter is, again, also one of those very highly, again, populated platforms that have a lot of those personal kind of, again, pages and engagement with them. The reason I mention that is there are probably people that are high level within your industries, or sometimes even companies. And what I love to do is to kind of follow a lot of those other, again, kind of companies or influencers, potentially you could call them, and kind of see what they're posting about, get ideas. Because what's really kind of nice about Twitter is you can actually put people into certain lists. So like I have an SEO list, I have a social media list. So I put people and companies that are related to that. So when I'm trying to think of things to kind of post, I can go to that list and I can see things usually just a little bit quicker, a little bit cleaner than going to things like Facebook and Instagram and things like that. So Twitter does have an external value, some of the stuff that we've already talked about, but an internal value I highly recommend that you at least try to kind of look at is, again, kind of being that fly on the wall and starting to categorize different people that you could follow, that you could kind of see what they're doing with content and potentially take that idea and expand on that potentially, or use that on other platforms like Instagram or LinkedIn or TikTok or whatever it may be. Okay, LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn is probably one of the more unique ones that we're going to kind of talk about here today, because again, whereas Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and, again, all these other kind of platforms kind of have a little bit of divide. We have a business page that's kind of always going after personal page people. On LinkedIn, it's a little bit different here where, yes, there are personal pages. Like I have a Ben Tice LinkedIn page, but then I also have a Skol Marketing business page. The unique thing about them, though, is that really both those pages are going after the same thing and are really trying to promote Skol Marketing more from a business perspective. Whereas, like, again, my Ben Tice Facebook page and my, Skol Marketing Facebook page, yeah, I might share a couple of things, again, between them, but really they are going to be really kind of separate in how you kind of manage those. So what I like to tell people is use that to your advantage. LinkedIn, if you are B2B, 100%, you need to be on LinkedIn. Every business professional should be on LinkedIn regardless, but if you're B2B, this is the place that you start. If you're B2C, a lot of times, again, yes, you can do LinkedIn, but it may not be the place that you start right away depending on your industry. A lot of times you might choose to, start with Facebook or Instagram, and that's kind of your main focus, and we kind of grow from there. But LinkedIn is all about business and is just business centric. So this is where also we can kind of cater some of our, again, our language or our terminology that we're using on LinkedIn and be a little bit more business specific. It's still good to do the give, ask kind of methodology, but again, we can be a little bit more catered to the business crowd when we're talking about LinkedIn here. And honestly, sometimes you want to shy away from posting things that might be too social. And that's something that you'll kind of see there too, is just because you have a post, as you start to learn these platforms, you might decide, hey, this is appropriate today to post on, Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, but I'm going to leave that off of LinkedIn here. And so, again, you'll start to kind of learn that and kind of see that, but that's just kind of an example of something that you might kind of go through as you're starting to learn these platforms and figure out which ones are kind of more applicable. But LinkedIn, you're going to see a lot of business content. So, case studies, infographics, videos, facts, statistics. Again, they're usually going to be a little bit kind of higher level than the other platforms that you're going to kind of see there. You can also use this kind of somewhat similar to Twitter in that we can identify key referral partners, identify, targeted prospects. We can participate in groups, very similar to that list, kind of the fly on the wall aspect that I was kind of talking about with Twitter. You can do really the same thing here. And at the end of the day, really your personal LinkedIn is kind of your virtual resume. Not only just for, of course, getting jobs, that's not what I'm necessarily talking about, but as consumers start to, again, look and find your LinkedIn page, especially in business to business, they can see your expertise. They can see it laid out in a certain format that, of course, has been around kind of, again, for years and years and years. So that also can be a benefit. Even if they find my Ben Tice page, they can see how it's kind of laid out. They can see my expertise. They can see my experience and how it's related to Skol Marketing and how I can individually help them. Or potentially they may still find my business page. That's the really unique thing about LinkedIn. Again, at the end of the day, if you're business to business, this is where you start. If you're B2C, most likely this is still a platform that you want to utilize as well. So another kind of cool thing within LinkedIn is that you actually get, again, you can increase followers, kind of similar to Facebook, but it's much more regulated. So you essentially get credits per month. Now you start out with 100, and LinkedIn has now been kind of expanding that to 250 for some users, as long as we're kind of utilizing it and your accounts are kind of in good standing. They're kind of beta testing it. So you might see 100, you might see 250. They're kind of, like I said, testing that out. But every month on the first of the month, essentially your credits renew. So you can go into your LinkedIn business page. Now, again, this is your business page, and you're able to invite, again, anywhere from 100 to 250 of your kind of connections. What's also kind of nice is you get credits back for every time someone accepts your invite. So I'll give you, I'll be honest, I have at the first of every month, I have a reminder on my calendar to go remember to use my credits for LinkedIn. And then usually a couple times throughout the month, I just kind of randomly remember it, and people have accepted those, and then I can kind of go re-invite them as well. So, that 100 may turn into 150 invites as people start to kind of accept those as well. But this is something very similar to on Facebook, is an easy, free way to help increase your business pages on Facebook from before, and now here LinkedIn. Okay, Google My Business. I'm going to go through this one a little bit quicker, but the reason I put this one on here is this is what used to be called Google Plus. And there's a really kind of cool feature within, again, Google My Business that is kind of applicable here. Technically, Google My Business isn't a social media platform, but it has a feature on there that can really help you kind of, again, get some more exposure to some of your posts that are about your business, or really start to push out, events, or, again, some things that are specific to your page. So what I'm kind of talking about here is Google My Business is the little red pin on the map. When you go to Google Maps and your business is listed, it's that, electronic or the digital kind of, yellow pages. We've all, again, used at least some type of local listing and specifically kind of Google out there. But what we're talking about here is if you have your Google My Business page, again, there's something called Google Posts. And so within Google Posts, you're able to kind of post like on social media. It's just done a little bit different. You can do some general social posts. That's completely fine. But you can also be a little bit more specific. So like, for instance, Skol Marketing, uses Google My Business and Google Posts to really pump out a lot of our events. Because as people are searching for Skol Marketing on Google and they find our Google My Business, they're looking at our pictures or our reviews, they'll be able to see our Google Posts and see some of the events that are coming up. So this works really well if you have sales or maybe employee announcements or anniversaries. A lot of things that are a little bit more centric about you work really well with Google My Business. This is also where we can get reviews. Now, of course, that can be potentially a negative or getting negative reviews. But again, when we go back to the user-generated content, this is a place that we can go ahead and kind of get that because people are submitting their opinion to us and we can utilize the positive ones for posts. Okay, so moving along, another platform that we probably have experienced or at least have heard of is Pinterest. Now, Pinterest is a really kind of niche platform, but can be a really powerful platform at that. Over 50% of Pinterest users have children, and the majority of them are women. So a lot of times, Pinterest gets kind of dubbed the mom platform. Again, that doesn't mean that other, that dads and men aren't on it. Doesn't mean that other generations aren't on it. It just means that that's kind of the main focus of this platform. Now, again, with Pinterest, very similar to Instagram, it has to be completely visual, but we can also do, again, samples of your work in kind of a portfolio kind of way because, Pinterest, instead of calling it a post or a tweet, it's called a pin. And we kind of create boards, which are just collections of pins. And what we're trying to do here is we can show portfolios of our work. We can do kind of checklists, of course, pictures. And really what's also kind of nice about Pinterest is we can drive traffic to our site. So we can not only get links, we can also sell products. We can also tag products on there. So again, if Pinterest matches that you have a visual business that you can post about, that it fits kind of that demographic that Pinterest is really all about, could be a great platform out there to be able to kind of, again, visually show. Another cool thing about Pinterest is that all of the pins that you put on Pinterest are connected to Google Images and can help you be found on Google Images. So when someone's searching for, again, XYZ photo on Google and they go to that Images tab, they can potentially find all of your pins that way as well. So that can be a super valuable asset and kind of benefit by potentially going with Pinterest because of that connection between Pinterest and Google. Okay, last couple here. So just hoping you're bearing with me here. So the last couple, the first one is Snapchat. So what's unique about Snapchat is, again, this is also another one that's kind of a quasi social media platform. And what we're kind of talking about here is that, sorry, give me 1 second here. Sorry, my headphones just cut out, so I got to call an audible here. So hopefully you guys can all hear me. I just had to change the outputs to that. But really what we're talking about is going to be, Snapchat is kind of a quasi social media platform. So it's kind of 50% going to be, again, classic social media, but then also the other 50% is just going to be more or less kind of communication. So, really how we can kind of utilize this, and this does get tricky for small businesses. The thing with Snapchat is a lot of the content is really only going to be visible for usually a maximum of 24 hours. So you have to be really strategic in how you're going to utilize this. And really with Snapchat is people really are going to have to try to find you in it. And a lot of times that means that you have to use some of your other social media platforms to have people kind of find you on Snapchat, because there's not a huge discoverability factor on Snapchat. It's really someone actively looking out and kind of searching for you. So, again, doesn't mean that Snapchat isn't right for your business. It's just that we've seen a lot of times it can be a little overwhelming. Plus, you have to do all of Snapchat on your phone. You can't utilize any third parties. So it's got to be completely in the moment on your phone type of content. So, again, a lot of times we'll see bigger brands use Snapchat. We'll see a lot of, if you're event focused and kind of be seeing behind the scenes, we'll use Snapchat. Otherwise, a lot of times this might be one just to kind of put to the side and really focus on the other ones, because more often than not, you're going to see a better ROI or return on investment of your time, energy, and budget being utilized for the other platforms out there. Okay, so the last platform that we're going to talk about is going to be TikTok. So it's the fastest growing social media platform out there.
some reports are saying it's going to be the biggest social media platform out here in the next, again, could be in the next kind of couple years. But, again, this is a very much a younger kind of crowd. So this is more Gen Z, maybe younger millennials. This is their number one kind of platform, and it's all video based. So this is going to be a maximum of like 60-second videos. This is, again, kind of right now a very trend, or you can go viral. A lot of viral trends or, viral videos are really kind of starting on TikTok. But really what we can kind of do with this is, of course, video is super powerful. We have a presentation that talks just about YouTube video and kind of social media video there. But really what we're kind of, talking about here is the overarching thing is that people love video. And so that's what TikTok is essentially all revolving around. So absolutely, if you're prepared to create the video content and you have the capabilities and the desire, absolutely TikTok can be really crucial for your business. Again, we can do fun videos. We can do behind the scenes videos. We can do how-to or resource videos. Again, all of these types of things that can do that. It's just understanding that, again, with TikTok, you only have one type of content. This isn't posting a picture with a question and, again, people kind of comment from there. Again, yes, people can share, like, and comment on your videos, but again, it's only going to be video based from there. So you have to be, again, realistic. You have to be understanding of kind of what you're getting into with that when it comes to kind of TikTok overall. Okay, so I like to kind of show this kind of graph. It's not necessarily to scale, but to kind of show you from a social perspective, again, the different types of platforms out there from a more very business orientated to a little bit more laissez-faire kind of social and kind of the mindset of those users on those social media platforms. And the last but not least, and I encourage you, we actually have just a presentation for this, but it is understanding that pretty much every social media platform that we talked about has an advertising model. The only one that doesn't have a direct one is Google My Business, because that's kind of SEM or Google AdWords. But every other social media platform that's pure social media has an advertising model. So again, you can utilize this to not only run ads and to run marketing, we can also utilize this to help, again, grow our following. So we can run ads on Facebook, on LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest, et cetera, again, to be able not only to increase our following, but of course, to go after certain demographics that are on those platforms as well. Another last thing, just the last tidbit I'll leave with you with social media advertising is just understanding, because you'll see different models being used, is there's a difference between PPC or pay-per-click and boosting or sponsoring. Pay-per-click means that the platform is going to push it out there and you're not going to be charged for how many people it reaches. You're only going to be charged for when they react to that. You're going to be charged for that click or that engagement. The other way is boosting or sponsoring, where you're paying for it to be, again, amplified or pushed out there to a certain amount of people that fit your demographics that you're essentially going after. And, if you have 100 people or 100,000 people engage with you or click on the link, you're not getting charged per one. Now, some of these are only for certain platforms, But again, it's just important to understand, if you see these different types of terms, what they are from that. So with that said, I'm going to open it up to questions. I apologize for a little bit of the tech issues here with my headphones going out. But if you guys want to put any chat, or again, any question in the chat, I'd love to be able to kind of answer those. Again, I know we went through a lot of social media platforms. I know we went through a lot of content. The idea here, though, is that you have this as a resource. You can, of course, kind of review this. And as you decide to kind of get into these platforms, it is going to get your feet wet. You're going to have to kind of play around with them, because every little platform is going to be different for every industry, for every type of business, for every demographic that you're essentially going after. Okay, so we do have a question here. So I've heard from a couple of folks in my industry that they're getting good response on Facebook after increasing their use of hashtags. What do you think? So Facebook actually does allow hashtags. So, so the different platforms that allow hashtagging that actually kind of work, I should say, is almost all of them now, but it's specifically going to be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn even, and TikTok. Those essentially have, and even Pinterest. So all of them have a tagging, again, capability of them. And I will say, again, all the platforms, again, can be kind of increased with your discoverability factor or potential increase in followers by doing hashtags. The biggest thing though is, when I said that about Instagram having 5 to 10 hashtags per post, I wouldn't recommend that to have 10 hashtags on Facebook. You're going to probably want to limit that to 1 to 2 to 3. There's a little bit of etiquette that kind of goes along with it. And so, again, in my opinion, that yes, hashtags can be beneficial, but also from there is that, again, like you want to limit them on some of the other platforms. Like Twitter, for instance, you're going to probably be limited just because of the character limits, but also again, like LinkedIn, you don't want to come into a LinkedIn post being, highly professional with 10 hashtags on there. So for the other platforms besides Instagram, I usually recommend try to keep it between 1 to 3, again, around there. I have another question that said, what about YouTube? So YouTube is very important. We actually have a presentation that's just centered around YouTube. YouTube is really unique in that it is a social media platform, but it's also more of a resource in a video. What I can tell you about YouTube is this: at the end of the day, yes, again, because video is so important, because Google actually owns YouTube and YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world, you absolutely should be looking to, again, invest in YouTube and look to utilize YouTube. And what we mean by investing in YouTube is, yeah, you can run ads on YouTube and you can do that type of stuff. But at the end of the day, again, really what we're talking about is putting the time, effort into creating those videos. So it looks like that's all the questions that we have for today. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Here's my contact information if you guys have any other questions. I also want you guys to check out our full workshop schedule so you can see all of our upcoming workshops. So if you're curious in learning more about SEO or YouTube or Google Analytics or social ads, you definitely want to check out our social media, our skolmarketing.com/workshops. The other thing that you can also do is on our YouTube channel, which you can find on our homepage or just by searching Skol Marketing on YouTube itself, you can actually find a lot of our pre-recorded workshops that you can get on demand. So again, I love having people tune in live. I just know sometimes that's not always viable. And as well as you can always see past ones as well. So again, check out our skolmarketing.com/workshops to see our upcoming workshop schedule, or check out our YouTube channel to see previously recorded ones. And the last thing I'll leave with you guys is that, what we also do to kind of give back beyond just doing these workshops is we also do offer free consultations or just an opportunity for you guys to talk to us more. So if you want us to review some of your social media accounts, if you want us to help you, again, understand analytics or SEO or YouTube more, we can also do that on a one-on-one stand, and they're completely free, no obligations. If you want to talk about our services, that's cool too. We can set up a separate thing. We just also know that sometimes these classroom style ones is we're talking about every demographic, B2B, B2C, every industry. And so sometimes I know we have some, more questions. And again, it's our way of kind of giving back. So if you want to take advantage of our free consultations, all you have to do is just send us an email. We'll set up a time. And again, we'll just be able to kind of go through with you and answer some of your more personal questions, if that's around social media or any other thing via digital marketing. So again, I want to say thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate the time, and Skol.